Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Driveway Engineer. I am JR. This is Daryl. Today I want to go over the things that I learned from the LS swap into this 79 C10. If you're not familiar, I'll run it down real quick. This is my 1979 C10. It's two-wheel drive, stepside. I bought it in Little Rock, Arkansas, like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. It has a 6-liter LQ4 that I paid $170 for. It has a set of 862 heads on it that I paid $50 for. It has a 4L80E that I paid $125 for. And this all came from the junkyard. Actually, the whole drivetrain in this, now that I think about it, came from Weller Self-Serve in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It has a 9.75-inch Ford rear axle. Came from Weller's. It all came from Weller. All came from the junkyard. The engine was halfway pulled when I bought it. The transmission was completely intact, and the axle was completely intact. So it's your typical LS swap, sloppy stage 2 cam, pack 12-18 springs. It's currently receiving the GT45 turbo that used to be on here. So that's the truck. That's what it is. This combination, they've been on the dyno a billion times. They make somewhere between 360 to 380 tire. I've never had this one on the dyno. It is a factory PCM. It's drive-by-wire, tuned with HP tuners by me. The end. That's the combination. So it's still column shift. I don't know if I mentioned it's 4L80E. With a converter from Ryan Jans, it's 3,400 RPM stall, 373 gears. So this is my, I want to say, 7th LS swap vehicle. The first LS swap I ever did was way back in 2005 when I spent all the money and I did all the things, and it was idiotic. It was a Mustang, a 95 Mustang. The one prior to this was a 65 C10, which was pretty ratty, and that just got a literal junkyard 5.3 that I paid, $75 for it. It was already pulled on half off day. I paid $75 for it, and I didn't do anything but put one of those turbos on it, and it would run bottom 12s. I took it to the track quite a bit. I never took it to the dyno, but I didn't change springs. I didn't do anything. At about 8 PSI, it would start hanging the valves, 8 to 10 PSI. But we're going to talk about this one and what I've learned over the years of doing this, because I've been doing it for much longer than I've been on YouTube. And, some of you are just starting out. Some of you are way advanced. Everybody's different. Everybody's different spots on their path. But, the number one thing that I've learned, I'll just start with this. I say it all the time. Do not buy an incomplete engine. I bought an incomplete engine. I did it again. And it nickel and dimed me, right? I didn't have an alternate. When I bought this, it didn't have any of the accessory brackets on it. It didn't have the water pump. I just really wanted it because it was a 6-liter. So I took it. And I didn't have the harness. I didn't get the PCM. So my $170 engine turned into like a $700 engine before I had the shit to make it run. And I regret that. And you guys should not do, even if you're not going to use it, they charge the same price at the yard. Or, if you're buying them on Marketplace, just buy a complete one. And if you have to buy it on Marketplace, you should probably just buy a donor that runs and drives, and then you can have everything. And if you don't need it, you don't need it. But if you do, you do. So yeah, that's number one. Don't buy an incomplete engine. Unless you're like me and you have like 3 more laying around and totes full of parts for them, then maybe you can get away with it. But, at the time, I did not. I had just moved. I'd gotten rid of all my stuff. We just moved into our house, and it nickeled and dimed me to death. Number 2, don't get hung up on looking for a certain thing. There are people out there who insist that they have to have an L33 because that 100 pounds is going to change their life. In a truck like this, you're not going to notice. You're not going to care. It has a better cam. You're going to change the cam probably. If you're not, then I guess get the slightly better cam. You'll never notice the difference. If you're doing a Corvette, maybe you give a shit. But if you're not, don't get hung up on having to have a 6-liter. The stock bottom end record holders, the fastest LS engines in the world that are, you know, stock bottom end are all 4.8s and 5.3s. So you don't have to get a 6-liter. You don't have to be too hung up on that. Number 3, you don't have to have a Holley. Like somebody asked the other day, what can I do to hide these wires? And he had a lot of wires. And some clown was like, buy a Holley. Really, the Holley doesn't come with wires? It does. It doesn't have that big main bundle. It looks a little bit nicer. But if you want to take the time to dress stuff up, knock yourself out. But you can see how much of the engine you can actually see when it's installed anyway. It's not a lot. And actually, I'm probably, if I have the time, I'll probably pull that intake off and dress it up, shave it, hide that harness, take that ugly bracket off of it, tuck most of the harness up under the intake, and make it look a little more presentable. But that's just time and effort. Like, you can't buy your way out of every problem. Some things just simply take time and effort. And that's just all there is to it. Let me see. What's the 4th thing I learned? You don't have to buy the things that everybody says you have to buy. Like, in the past, I'd use the ICT billet, Dirty Dingo type, you know, little adjustable mounts. They're like $15. They bolt to a Chevy clamshell. If you're swapping a Chevy, just use those. Just use those. I bought these Tejas Steelworks mounts that moved my engine up and forward, and they make it kind of a little bit nicer for some certain reasons. Like, it's easy to get to my bell housing bolts and stuff. But I did it so that I can fit the AC compressor, and the truth is I live in Michigan. Look at that. I'm not running AC. I'm not ever going to. I'm never going to hook that up. What did I even buy into that shit for? I did, like a dope. Yeah, so that's probably the 4th thing I've learned. It's don't just, and the column shifter, I bought the low car. Let's see if you can see it in there. See that steel rod by the last spark plug wire? That's a low car column shifter linkage, and it's solid and it sucks. And every time I get on the throttle, the thing torques over and it pulls it down a gear. And it's obnoxious, and I don't like it. So, yeah. Do some research, ask some people. Don't just hang out in one group, ask multiple groups, see what they think. And this brings me to my 5th point. Because I've been hanging out on the internet, I'm self-employed nowadays, and it's cold as balls up here because I'm not done with my heater yet. So I basically come up here and work longer than 2-3 hours, you know, to fill my orders or whatever, and then I go back home. And I do the rest of my work on social media where I advertise and interact with people and stuff like that. And going through car groups and stuff, I often see people, jack stand builds, we all know about that, right? But lately I've been seeing this trend of people, like I click their names. There's always been people where I click their names and they're selling something, right? They're owner at douchebagperformance.com or whatever. So, you know, I question their motives when they're saying, oh, you got to buy a Holley, and I sell them, by the way, or you got to buy these mounts, and I sell them, by the way. But there's also people who have jack stand builds that have never drove. I have put 6,000 miles on this truck, by the way. My round trip to work, one way was 60 miles, and then sometimes I would go somewhere else. I would drive this probably, twice a month over the summer, spring, summer, fall. I put quite a few miles on it. There's videos on the channel of me driving it around. So, yeah. I'm not saying you have to listen to me and what I say is gospel, because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat and like 990 of them work. But you should at least consider the source. And the newest trend I've seen is I click people's names and they don't even appear to have a car. Like, if you look at my name on Facebook and you go to my profile, and even the shit that's publicly available, which for me is everything because I'm a public figure, you don't have to go very far to find a picture of one of these projects around, right? Like, you'll figure out pretty quick that I am a car guy and I have cars. And I click on these people's pictures and they don't even have cars. They just have opinions. They just watch Street Outlaws and Fastest Cars in the Dirty South and whatever other bullshit Discovery Channel show they can, and show up on the internet with opinions and start spending other people's money. Nobody will spend your money faster, and this is probably, I'm making it number 5, but it's probably the most important thing. Nobody will spend your money faster than some asshole on the internet who doesn't have to answer for it. Like, I literally just watched somebody was trying to buy a used HP tuner, and the guy says, oh, you can't do that. They're locked, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, that's not true at all. You can just send a serial number to HP Tuners customer service, and they'll ensure you that it's not bricked. And sometimes they get bricked because people are fucking around trying to get free credits, by the way, side note. But, yeah, you can buy my HP tuners. I can buy yours. They're transferable. When I buy credits, I just load it up. I enter my serial number, and it gives you like a product key, and you enter it, and the credits go on your device. It's not a big deal. So the guy's like, oh, I didn't know. Well, then why did you answer with complete authority like you did know that? Like, why did you just tell this guy, oh, you can't do that. There's no way to work, blah, blah, blah. And you have no fucking clue, in fact. You've never probably even touched an HP tuner's device. I mean, my God. So definitely be aware of who you're listening to on the internet. You know, and if you're trying to build a race car, you probably shouldn't listen to me. I don't race anymore. I haven't raced in years and years, 20 years. I used to race in a class with a trailer and a truck and the whole thing. And I know exactly what it takes. But that's long past for me. I don't give a shit. I drive this truck like 5 miles down the road. I do 3 donuts. I go get a cheeseburger. I let Peanut out so that he can pee on things. And we come back home. And that's the whole truck. You know, and that's all I want to do. So I'm okay that my turbo is not the greatest turbo ever, and I'm okay that I smashed my crossover pipe with a hammer. And I'm okay that I don't have an X-Link and a 100mm throttle body. And, you know, maybe you are too, and maybe you're not. Maybe you have to have the absolute best of the best all the time because, I don't know, race car, hashtag race car, you know. Define your goals and be realistic about them. I tell people that all the time. If you've never had a 1,000 horsepower tire, you have no idea where to start with 700 horsepower tire. Put the swap in and make it run. Do that shit first. Look, there's the junkyard writing. It's a junkyard engine. You can't just buy one for $500. Well, let me present to you Exhibit A. Anyway. The C10 is about the easiest swap you can do. I mean, I think the next easier one is the truck newer than this, you know, the 88 to 98s. It's probably about the only easier swap in the world. So, you know, your Chevy, they make everything in the world for it. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Hopefully you guys enjoy. I hope you guys have a great day and happy Sunday. And we'll see you next time on The Driveway Engineer.